is From Dream to Delivery, How to Do Work You Love, Love What You Do, and Launch Your Dream Project. And that is releasing actually on June 7th. And everyone here tonight is going to get a free copy, and it's going to be an early version even before it's officially released. So how amazing is that?
Thank you very much. So I have to confess, I have ulterior motives for being here tonight. My conscience has been bothering me. I very often attend Stanford Igniters events being in the audience. So if I look familiar to some of you, it's because I'm here, and when I'm in town, I try and make these events. I do feel a lot of pressure because I think the speakers, the organizers have brought in over the last 3 years have been outstanding. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, so I'd like to give the organizers for Stanford Igniters a big round of applause. But I said I have to confess my ulterior motives. Some people are here to share ideas. Some people are here because they want to help the world. I'm here for a very greedy reason. I've tried with my 6-word answers, and I always have the right messages on Twitter, and I always make sure I have the right hashtags. I've placed my card faithfully in the bucket each time it was passed around. I have never won Mrs. Moskowitz's money. That's why I'm here. I figured out a way I could win Mrs. Moskowitz's munchies. And now my conscience forced me to confess this fact. So, I want to give you a little bit of background to this talk because it came about in kind of an unusual way. And the book, From Dream to Delivery, came about in a bit of an unusual way. Because I've worked in the games business for the last 35 years, and games have been disrupted by digital the same way that so many other media have been disrupted. And so 10 years ago, if you wanted to publish a game, you would have gone to one of the big publishers and tried to get them to publish it. And they would stand upon their dais and say, yes, I approve of you. Here are my terms, I will publish you. Or they could stand on their dais and say, no, you are doomed. Leave now. And that was how you got published. And so with the opening of digital, we now have so many ways to publish a game that for teams who know how to publish games, they no longer have to go and kneel in front of the input. Very often, not always, but very often, they can form their own company, they can do it on their own. There's a whole new set of problems that we talk about, user acquisition, having people be aware of your product, but it has been a tremendous change in the industry. So I started doing seminars at game conferences around the world where I gave people 10 questions. And I called them saying like 10 questions, are you ready to go indie? To let people decide, hey, is this something I want to try, is it not? People loved it, it went very well. So that's the first half of this presentation, where it came from. But then what happened was, I go to meetups once or twice a week. Because after lasting in high tech in the Bay Area for 35 years, I know I have to constantly be learning. I have to keep learning new things, reinventing myself, because otherwise the craft leaves us behind. So I'm here at Stanford Igniters very often. Once or twice a week I'm somewhere trying to learn something. And you talk with people the way we talk over pizza here. And what I heard was people talk about, I've got this dream project, a startup, a nonprofit, an initiative I want to do inside my company. But I'm stuck. I can't proceed because of this problem. I can't proceed because of that problem. It won't work. I'm not able to do it. And the problems they were describing were the same things that the game developers sit around talking about. They were the problems haunting them, thinking about starting a company and trying to do a game by themselves without the powerful intellect. So I took my presentation, modified it a little to be not about games, but more generally about simply the craft of starting projects. And that's where this presentation came from, and that's where the book, From Dream to Delivery, came from. 3 ways to get your copy, by the way. I will put my email address up on the screen at the end. You could email me. You could give me your business card tonight before you go. or if you just scribble it on a piece of paper, you give me the piece of paper with your email address and your name. Any of those three, we're doing the final formatting. In the next week to 10 days, we will have the ebook ready. It's actually be about 10 days before the formal publication. And we'll do a special Stanford Igniters version, and we'll get that to you. But that was the root of the book, was this idea of people getting stuck in certain places. And those of us who have had the chance to be through many startups and started companies, wanting to be able to give back and say, okay, here's some ways to figure out, first of all, figure out what you really want to do. Because not everybody wants to do the same thing and in the same way. And then once you have figured out what you really want to do, then what steps you can take to one way or another just keep making progress so we don't get nowhere. So I've got two questions we started out with up here. As I go through tonight's questions I'm going to ask, I'll go back and forth between asking questions and telling some stories and sharing some ideas of some things about your answers. But if you would write down your answers somehow, you could write it on paper, you could write it on the notes app on your phone. I've had people email themselves with it. I'm not going to call on anybody. I will not ask for your answers. This is only for your own eyes, you with yourself. But all the research says that if we write something down, we think of what we're writing down differently than if we just kind of say it to ourselves. And so it goes into a different kind of RAM in our brains that works a little better. So that's why I always encourage people, because you're the only one who will ever read it, and you may very well delete it the minute you walk out the room. Just a few abbreviated words are probably going to be fine for you, but the idea is to just get your thoughts down well enough that you can look at it and remember what you said. So kind of the fun things I start with, waiting for the session to start, always are question number 12. If you won the lottery, what would you do when you came back? I mean, you've done your complete to-do list, you've gone to a wonderful vacation, you come back, you're at the point you're fully rested, there's nothing you need to do that day. What are you going to do that day? It's just a fun question when you come back. And then number 11, since officially I'm supposed to have 10 questions, but I cheat. Then number 11 is, what's the project you've worked on in your life you remember the most fondly? And you'll notice I did not say that was the most successful. I did not say that made the most money. I did not say that had the best team. You get to decide, but just think about, if you're just thinking, okay, what's the situation I was in, I just remember that the most fondly. Write down what that was. And those are kind of our two extra credit points. And as soon as I figure out how to score all this, I'll figure out how you get extra credit. But the fact is there are no scores. So this is Hacking Dreams and Teams. As I mentioned, I'm very proud and honored to be here at a venue where I've seen so many great speakers. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come out. By the way, the photograph, it's a little hard to see right there, of the gentleman. It's actually my grandfather. He is standing in front of his shop in Nome, Alaska, in the Alaskan Gold Rush of 1899. And you can kind of see the wind blowing the signs up there. But he was a master sheet metal worker. And so he, during the summers, would go look for gold. And in the winter, he was the only man in Nome who could hand make stoves. And a stove was a good thing to have in the winter of 1899 in Nome, Alaska. So he went through a lot of trepidation. He had made more money on stoves than he did on gold. But nonetheless, he went through a lot of trepidation. His partner was actually killed falling into a crevasse on a glacier. So any time in my career of all the ups and downs that I've thought, oh Don, this is terrible, feel sad for yourself, I just look at his picture and I go, okay, I've readjusted my attitude. So, only a couple of things here. This is kind of what I've been doing the last 45 years. The one point I want to point out is there was a point in the 70s, I didn't really bring this out, really before the games business started. I was writing games on university mainframes as a hobby, never thinking it would be a career. I trained to be a playwright. I wanted to be a new voice of the American theater. That was what I thought I was going to do, which is sounds a little silly now. But a buddy of mine and I started an adult school Spanish program at the local school district. We were teachers. And we started doing what nobody did. We started marketing the program. This is late 70s. And it turned out we built the largest adult school Spanish program in the western United States. And I look back at that now and I think, okay, maybe this is something I just naturally like to do, is go out and start stuff. I was taking home $800 a month from this venture in the late 70s, but it was a lot of fun. 2 years later, I was running one of the largest game design teams in the world, and our team was producing $600 million in sales, which would today be about $1.5 billion. I will tell you, I walked into work every day going, how did this happen? Is anybody going to figure out that only 2 years ago I was a school teacher trying to be a professional writer, and now I'm running this big team, and what we do is advertise on television every night. And just that feeling of world is out of control, and how am I keeping up? That sense of the world being out of control and moving faster than I can predict, even after 35 years, has never changed. I've decided I just have to get used to being uncomfortable. And I think that's part of what we do, is we just have to get used to being uncomfortable and feeling like we're constantly playing catch up as we learn. So, for the last 8 years, I've been working as advisor to different teams with large publishers, independent groups. I've been teaching and mentoring at Founders Space. And I also have my own startup. Another example of you never know what's going to happen. This morning when I got up, I was really focused on thinking about the presentation tonight. Today at noon, I was pitching my company to a group of investors, just because that's the way it turns out sometimes, and we have to adapt. Back to that whole concept of being out of control. So, cover for dream to delivery, which you will be getting. So, I like this photograph when we start to talk about starting any dream project, whether it's a startup, whether it could be even a nonprofit. I'm president of a nonprofit that awards scholarships and mentorships to students preparing for a career in games, or for internal projects. This photograph to me, for some reason, it embodies that sense of you're working hard, you're thinking things through, small group of people, you're trying to solve problems, you're committed to the thing, you're both scared and excited at the same time. So I like looking at this photograph and thinking it embodies all those contradictory feelings that we get at once, both being very powerful and very, very helpless, all at the same time, which I think a lot of times we feel as entrepreneurs, is we have big problems we wrestle with that seem so large, and yet certain things we're doing are just working. So we did our bonus questions. So question number 1, to start with. When did you first start becoming interested in your dream project? You may already be working on a startup, you'd answer about that. You might be considering doing one. If there's something you really like, take what you're thinking about and use that. But take some hypothetical. If you don't have a dream project right now, think about something that would make a good dream project, and we'll just treat it as a hypothetical. And write down when was that moment you decided that this was a dream project for you, or it was exciting, or it was interesting? And then write down what makes you care so much about it. Because the nature of dream projects is they're not just like something else. Oh boy, I'll tell you, we have a fence at our house that I need to stain, and I should be staining that fence, and I keep putting it off. Staining that fence is not a dream project. I'm actually dreading staining that fence. I'm not looking forward to that. And I have certain work projects I do I'm frankly not really looking forward to. In fact, doing the final 16th proofread of the book, looking for the last typos, I'm not looking forward to that. But when we have our dream project, when we think about a startup, it tends to be something that haunts you. And it doesn't haunt you typically just because it's something you have to do. The fence I need to stain haunts me only when I look at it. The rest of the time, I'm never thinking about it. But our dream projects, you find yourself waking up in the morning and thinking about that project. You're in the shower, you find yourself thinking about it. You're stuck in traffic, you find yourself thinking about it. But just because it means something to you. So what we're going to do is get down to a couple of words about when it became your dream project and why it matters to you. Why it isn't just like another thing. As an example, this board game was the beginning in certain ways of me being a game designer. When I was a kid, I had this board game, and I played some with my friend, but I grew up in an alcoholic family, and about 5 o'clock at night at our house, things would start to get rough. And about 6 they'd get rougher, and by 7 or 8, you really wanted to be as far out of sight and out of mind as you possibly could be. And this game was my haven. So I would just kind of hunker up in a corner in my room, stay away from the conflagration, and play this game. And I would play it I'd play it sometimes when I should have done my homework. I'd be playing my game. I kept statistics from everything, the whole thing. I'm a big baseball fan, obviously. And so this game was really important to me, not just because I liked it and it was fun, but this is what let me get through some really rough years in junior high and in high school. So lo and behold, I get introduced to a computer. The first thing I did was I wrote a baseball game. And that one thing led to another, and I've now done another baseball games and sports games. So for that particular dream, the current company I'm working on, we're doing some new kinds of sports games. That dream began all the way back when I was 12 years old with that box. Now for most dream projects, they're probably not going to go back to the time of the dinosaurs, like my example. But typically there's something that made it matter to you. That's what we're trying to get. One of the things I'll talk about, whenever I talk about doing startups or doing dream projects, I always think about The Wizard of Oz, because I think there's some wonderful lessons from those books and from that movie about when we set out knowing that we have to do something, we're not entirely sure about everything we have to do. We end up meeting good, diverse people who we work with. And if we stick with it, we can accomplish something we never thought we could do. For me, this movie is always a reminder and an inspiration. So I bring it up in my talks a lot. So question number 2. What does your business card say for your dream project? Or what will it say when you're ready to have one? Or what would it say if it's hypothetical? It might say CEO, it might say chief designer, it could say chief cook and bottle washer, whatever it says, whatever you picture yourself doing, what your title would be, write that down for yourself. And again, I'm not going to call on anybody asking for answers. The whole point of this is it's private for you to do. And write down a few words about how you think you will spend most of your time each day. What will be the 1 or 2 things that most days you spend most of your time doing that goes with that job title? And when I think of Wizard of Oz with this, I think about how different it is between when we do solo projects, which a lot of dream projects are. This book I just finished was a dream project for me. And although I get feedback from people and so on, in the end, it was a solo project. Most startups end up being with teams. But that produces a lot of differences, whether you are on the yellow brick road by yourself or whether you're with a group. And we're going to touch on some of those permutations tonight. The one thing I will say about how your time goes as a CEO is that the bigger your team gets, if you have a team, if it's something that calls for a team, the bigger your team gets, the less time you will get to do what you think you were going to do when you started your startup or your dream project. And if you get a bunch of CEOs together and ask them, who've been through multiple startups, what's one of the most frustrating things you learned on your startups? Very often, right near the top of the list, is I had this vision I was going to be able to work on this work I love. But as the team grew, I spent more and more time where I had to manage the team as the leader of the company, and I was doing less and less of what I loved that led me to start the project or to start the company with it. So where does this take us? I think what it says is it's something to think about. If you pictured yourself doing a small pottery shop and you'd sell your pottery at the farmer's market, you're probably not going to have a big team, it won't matter. But if you saw yourself working your way up to a major factory where you'll have 120 people manufacturing pottery, then is that going to be a heartbreak that you're no longer, at a certain point, able to make your own pottery? Or is that just fine? Because the factory is what you know. This is an example of the kind of question I think people need to think about at the start, about what we really want. Because so often, we figure out what we really want after we have seen the consequences of what we already chose, instead of sitting and thinking through, what really is most important to me? The first time I was ever a CEO, I admit, I would take my business card, this is embarrassing to say, I would take my business card and I would just look at it and smile. And I would look at the letters CEO and I would just feel good. After working for other people for years, I just, CEO, done. CEO. But the fact is, that does come with other costs. There is no right answer, and one of the points I keep trying to pound home is you will have your Uncle Ernie who tells you, let me tell you, it's all about return on investment. Whatever you do, watch your return on investment. Okay, thank you, Uncle Ernie. I appreciate your advice. Thank you very much. And you may have another friend who says, commodities, dude. Commodities. Software to trade commodities. Look, my friend, you made millions doing that. That's what you want to be doing. Everybody has an idea of what you want to be doing. The trouble is that very often we're lousy at running our own lives, yet we're running around telling other people what they ought to do. So one of the things that I really try and encourage people to do is to say, okay, I'm in charge of my own life. I'm going to take the time to think these things through. And I'll be polite to Uncle Ernie and my friend who believes in commodities, but I'm going to pick what matters to me, because I only get to do this once, and I want to be in charge of my own life. So that's a theme you'll see coming from the things I say. It's lovely that you get all this advice, including advice you get from me. But if the shoe doesn't fit on anything I say, throw it away. Wear it if it looks good, and if not, just throw the thing away. It's what works for you. So, 3.1, do you need anyone else? This is back to really thinking about, okay, do I want to be solitary? Do I want a team? For your dream project, for what you're thinking of, do you need a team? If your dream project is to break into the Mrs. Moskowitz's Munchies warehouse and secure yourself an additional supply, how many people would you need to do so? Not that I'm preoccupied with my ultimate goal. 3.2, you'll notice also I use decimal points I cheat, so I really don't have 10 questions. In the book there are 83. I promise there's a lot less than that in the presentation. What would the job title be for the first person you hired other than you? That turns out to be a really important thing to think about, because that's the person, whatever it is that you're not good at or you've never done or you don't know how to do, that your dream project or your startup needs, that's what that person may need to be. Or maybe that person will have to come later and first you need somebody else. But it's a fun thing to think about. You could also think, no, I'm happy all by myself, and that's cool too, as long as it fits. And then 3.3, you already know who you'd want to hire for that job. You may already be working with. You might have your dream partner already. But do you already know that person? One of the things I always like to talk about is how often in my career I thought, oh, Irving would never want to come work with me. Now, Irving's so beyond working with me. And then Irving calls me on the phone 6 months later and says, I heard you had an opening. Could I talk about that? And I'm going, oh yes, we could talk about that. That's happened to me a number of times. And part of it is because we tend to be in a situation where we give ourselves less credit. but thinking about it and giving yourself permission to ask somebody if maybe they would like to work with you in some way. Because very often, you'll be surprised, they may say yes. And if they don't, no harm, you just complimented them by asking. So number 4, your team is divided on a key issue. They're arguing, no consensus, everybody's arguing. And I'm not talking about what flavor of pizza to get or something like this. When I encounter these in the teams that I advise, there have been a couple of cases where this is what got, the reason I was brought into a company to help was a problem like this. Normally what you'll encounter when it gets bad is, one point of view will be, if we lower the price of our flagship product, we are damning our organization to a purgatory in which we have destroyed our brand, in which we have trampled upon the history of all the work that has been done to this moment, and in fact, in which we will be denying ourselves our rightful place in the future destiny of world commerce. And then the opposing argument is, dude, if we don't make some more sales, we're gonna die. We gotta lower prices or we're all gonna die. Do you guys hear that? You all hear it? We're gonna die. So now we've got damage the brand if you lower price as one position, and we've got we're all gonna die unless we mark down prices another. If you're leading the team, what do you do? And everybody's on either side. There's no agreement. How would you break that morass? So just give yourself 3 or 4 words about what you would do. And I think that, I joke about this, but over like 30 years of being a CEO or a GM, there have been a lot of times I've been sitting in meetings that may not be quite as dramatic as that, but I've seen this situation a lot of times. Well, before we get to this, I'll make a comment about that. This is a great example of there's no one perfect right answer. I will give you what for me is my right answer, but I will tell you, I'll give you what I think is a wrong answer, but I'll tell you a story about it. A friend of mine sold his company for $100 million. Obviously, things went fantastically for him and for his co-founders. In this situation, his answer was, I'll tell you what we always do, we take a vote. When he had a team of 4, he did it. When he had a team of 75, he did it. They would do a vote. Whatever the vote was, that was what they did. It was part of their company culture. They built great products over a period of several years. This was not a flash in the pan. Ultimately sold for $100 million. I hate that answer, speaking as one manager. Because to me, it equates the person in the room with the most experience has exactly as much influence as the person who has never seen the situation before. And that scares me when some of the stakes are really high. But then look at my friend and look how well it worked for him. It just says, for some people, you just have to go your own way and do what you believe in. I think it's good to study the options and decide consciously what works for you. It's why there's no right answers. I will tell you an answer I am utterly convinced is wrong, and I've never seen somebody succeed with this answer, however, with no disrespect to anybody. And that is, well, we'll meet again next week and maybe we'll decide. Postponing decisions you have to make in a business, in any setting, in a nonprofit. It's like going to where the 280 and the 101 split. You have to decide which way you're going. You can go 280, you can go 101. In between is a concrete barrier. You cannot stop in the middle of the freeway because a semi will take you out. And if you keep going and you fail to decide, you will hit the wall. You must do 101 or you must do 280. And yet, over and over again, it's a situation where consultants like me get brought in. People are at an impasse because they can't get past the need to decide. What I've always done with my teams is I've always said, I have a mentor for me, a guy I just respect highly. I've worked with him for 16 years. Actually lives in Mountain View. And his name is Bob Wallace, and he has a great phrase that says that consensus is a great thing, when you can get it. And I think that's very wise. So what I've always said to my teams is, look, let's argue this out. Let's see if we find an answer together. If we can't, I'll make a decision. Which is frankly a veiled threat. Because knowing me, I might make a bad decision. But I'll say, look, we can't work it out. I'll make a decision. But let's argue it out. First of all, it makes it more likely to get consensus because nobody wants to trust my decision. And secondly, what it does is it says, by the way, we're not standing around forever. We're not postponing a decision. We're going to make a decision. So that's one thing I can share what's worked for me. So I want to share this chart because when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your startup or your dream project, this, to me, frames a way you can look at it. And if you think about where, at different points in your life, you're going to be at a different point on this chart, and being able to think about that and go, gosh, where am I right now? And thinking about it is worth doing. So what we've got here is, on our lateral axis, is how much experience you have. So when you first get out of school, you're up here, you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of experience. And once you've done something 30 years, you're going to go over here, you're going to have a lot of experience. So that's what we're, that part of the chart. And then the vertical part of our chart is risk tolerance. How much risk can you take? So very often the example we use is students fresh out of school, they may still be living at home with parents. So they've got financial support. They have more time. They may be working full time on Sunday, but they also have a fair amount of free time. They're not married, they're not have kids yet. They have a lot of risk tolerance. They don't have a lot of experience. What tends to happen is that as our lives go on and we get more experience, we get mortgages, we get partners, we get kids, we get obligations, and our risk tolerance goes down, even as our experience goes up. So looking at it and saying, how much risk can I handle at this point in my life? And how much experience do I have to leverage what I'm doing? There are some cases where somebody takes a very specialized course of study at university and comes out super qualified to do certain things immediately. In some ways, they have a lot of experience right off the bat. We just have to look at and know where we are. And we also have to look at two ways. So I use the credit card to say there's financial risk we talked about. But there's also, I've got the Tin Woodsman's watch there. And we also have a risk of our time and our passion. We can't do everything in life. There's always more things we want to do. So if there's a project you're working on, you can't go, oh, I'm going to work on 5 dream projects at once, and I'll just pour myself into all 5. It doesn't work that way. It's like money. Time and passion end up being reasonably finite resources. So you have to think about, okay, what's my experience to risk tolerance? But it isn't just risk tolerance for money, it's risk tolerance for how much time do I have? And if I'm going to give my heart to something, what do I believe in enough that I want to commit to it and I'm going to give my heart to it in terms of a project or a startup? So as I mentioned early on in your career, you're likely to be clustered with both up here. If you've been very successful, you might find yourself later in your career where you actually have financial freedom that's greater, but your time is still much less free. This is one of the ways you can prepare to ask yourself the right questions about how you want to pursue what you want to do. So let's talk about the financial side. I'm going to go through some sample questions. Some of them are going to sound familiar in this venue. But I think that 5.1 is important, which is, are you going to give up a job for what you're going to do, or is it something you can do part-time? I hear settings in the valley where somebody will take a stand and go, well, if you're not fully committed, if you are not full-time, you are not worthy of sitting in that folding chair in Silicon Valley. You know, they sawed down an orange tree to make room for that chair, and you're wasting the space. I don't believe it. I think if you're doing something you believe in that you think is important and you can't do it full-time, The heck with the guy who resents you sitting where the orange tree used to be. If you can do it part-time and it's worth doing, that's progress. That's moving ahead. That's moving towards our goal. I think there's no shame in that. Some things are really hard to do part-time. Others are very doable part-time. So it's something that instead of forbidding ourselves because some arcane rule of Silicon Valley requires us to do this, the irony is if you talk to people who were in the Valley in the 80s, when we started Electronic Arts, we were backed by Sequoia and Kleiner Perkins. People didn't talk like that in that way. Yes, if you had a startup that was venture-backed, that's what it was going to be, but there were a lot of different kinds of initiatives people could do, and the idea that any initiative that was not venture-backed was somehow not worthy of thinking about. That wasn't part of the mindset. And you'd have people come into town where that was their only focus. But this idea of levels of coolness, it's like, in some ways the Valley now is like a high school. If you're venture-backed, it's like you're a cheerleader, or like you're on the football team, you're really cool, and it's really good to be popular. But I think that actually sometimes the coolest kids are the kids who are actually going and doing something great that will emerge later, who may not have started out in Y Combinator. So think about part-time, full-time. Think about achieving what you want to achieve and the hell with what anybody else thinks. So the classic formula, how much money do you have to coming in for sure each month? And the same for your team. I bring these up because the point I want to make looking at these questions is we tend to kid ourselves. And I have been guilty of this. It's a miracle I've been married for 40 years because I have had the sin of kidding myself about this on startups. Because we start to think with our heart. And money is one place we need to think with our heads. And so really thinking about the consequences of if you don't get that nut each month, what can happen to you, what can happen to your family. And for that part of the discussion, rolling out the emotion. We want to live in the real world when we talk about money. Because we can be clever as all get out. We can be guerrilla fighters in the jungle to get our project done. But we have to take care of ourselves and our families to do it. So that's why I'm saying everywhere else we're driven by passion, commitment to what we're doing. When we think about money, we want to go back to cold, hard truth and make sure we take care of ourselves. Because otherwise, all that happens is the mission is sabotage. And we don't want to do that. So that's why I bring this up, because I think people are familiar with the question, but I just want to emphasize, you just have to make sure you're careful. What I really believe in is always having pad in those numbers. So you add up what you think the nut is, and then you say, okay, every month something happens that's a surprise, and I'm going to add that into what the monthly nut is, because I don't know what the surprise will be 3 months from now, but there will be a surprise. Like the time a neighbor moved his fence 8 feet onto our property. That was a lovely surprise. So, related, 6.1, how many people depend on your income? If others depend on you, that's going to change all of it, everything in this part of the world. When I first got out of school, it was just me. I was sending money to my parents. They weren't dependent on it, I was just sending money to them. Later, I had a mortgage, 2 kids, my wife and I both working. We were supporting my parents. And I had a lot of people depending on me. And that was a very different sort of pressure. So think about where you are for that. And then the final one here in this strand is, how does your partner feel about the risk? If you're just playing with an idea, I don't think you need to talk to your partner if you're just thinking out loud about something. And it's the very first stages of your thinking. If I talk to my wife about every idea I ever get, I think the last thing I would have mentioned to her most recently would have been, wouldn't it be kind of fun to just take 3 months and do nothing but ride trains all over Europe? I realized that was not a great idea before I ever actually mentioned it to her and got the look. So when it's just kind of something you're thinking about, I don't think you need to. If you start to really think about acting, I think if you have a partner whose life is intertwined with yours, then it's a conversation that needs to happen. Part of what I do on my teams that is very controversial, and I have had people give me hell for this, what I've always done in my entire career is I've said to people on my teams, by the way, I'm committed to this company. I better be, I'm the CEO. I'm committed to this company. But I will tell you, I've never had a job, I've never worked on a project, I've never designed a game that was more important to me than my marriage. And so if the company, the project, the game come into conflict with my marriage, full disclosure to you working on my team, I'm going to value my marriage more highly. And I've had people say, how can you say that to your team? You're saying you're not committed to your own venture. You idiot! And my counter to that is, those are my values. I have to share them openly. It turns out that that actually frees me because my wife knows how I feel. Everybody around me knows how I feel. Which means she can feel secure in knowing how I will behave in any situation. Which actually makes it easier to work through hours we have to work. The people around me can predict how I will act. And my team, when they have those moments when they need to go home to their partner or to their kids, they know we will always say yes, because that's the values of our management. So I know there are people who have definitely excoriated me for this point of view, and I absolutely stick by it. It is not necessarily what you should do, because you get to decide what you do. But I share it as an example of the kind of thinking you do when you think about talking to your partner and thinking what is important to you. So we have two kids, two boys, they're both grown. One of them ignored our advice and went into the games business. The other has a startup in health IT. So they each went their way. Again, I use these photos to emphasize the different phases of life and how it will be different at different times for you. So this photo representing what it was like sitting in dorm room. I always like to have comedy in my presentation. So here's the photo of me sitting in my dorm room at the beginning of my career. Can't see it too clearly, but that was my author photo for my first produced play that a friend took in 1973. And so I look back now and I think, oh yeah, the great voice of American theater. Kid, you were so overstepped. But one thing I'll tell you about meaning comes in different ways. I've used this photograph joking around for years in presentations, and then I noticed, just within the last 2 weeks, I looked and I said, you know what, there was actually something very portentous about that photo. Even at that point, I did not have a lot of obligations. That's the shirt I was wearing the day I met my wife, 2 years later. And so I look at that and say, yeah, it's me by myself, feeling much too self-important about myself. But right there is the evidence of the life that was to come, even in something as petty as that. So I like to show this photo when video games first started. Atari and Intellivision were engaged in this great war. Television commercials calling each other's games terrible things and saying we were each better than the other on television each night. This was the softball team from my team. So we had about 50 programmers and artists and audio engineers and musicians in our team. I won't explain Daglow, it's a technical term that was arcane to our bizarre machine. But I look at this and I remember, once your team grows, it isn't just your own family you're thinking about and your own impact. It's all of them. I look at some of these people I worked with in 3 different companies over 20 years. And I think about, you know somebody at that level where they keep coming back and working with you again and again and taking risks with you again and again. And you think about, okay, that to me is a sense of obligation in how we think of these things. It isn't just me and my family, it's us and our families. And when a company gets even bigger, then it's like looking at a set of people at the parade at Disneyland. You can get out, at Stormfront, we averaged 65 people on our team over 20 years. And so that would create a scene like this if we got all the families and kids and extended families together. And you wear that, you carry that around on your shoulders. Deciding that that's okay is an important part of deciding to build something that you want to grow. If you're trying to build something small, then it doesn't happen. If you're trying to build something that will grow, somewhere along the way you have to come to grips with that reality. Not everybody thinks of it that way, but whether they acknowledge it or not, the chain reactions happen. Whenever we see layoffs, we see the chain reactions happen. So that's why I think it starts with ourselves saying, where am I on risk tolerance? Where am I on risk tolerance? Which again, only you can know. And then it's thinking about all the chain reactions that come after that if you have a team. So let's talk about the passion piece. So if you start up a company and you have some success, and let's say you are the founder, you are the leader of it, even if somebody else is directing it every day and you're doing a creative role, you're the leader of it, how long do you think a commitment that's likely to be? And this isn't something that never gets funding and goes nowhere and silently goes away, but you get some sales, you start to have some success, you hire some people. What's the commitment length you think that you're looking at? Oh man. I asked this question of a number of CEOs who had done game startups. I asked 10 or 12 of them. And these are people typically who had multiple startups, multiple experiences over a number of years. Their answer was, ironically, the numbers were very tightly packed. A majority of people gave the exact same answer. 5 years. That once you get to the point where you have a going concern, you've got a place of work, you're making payroll, you have people working there, you have products, you have a lawyer helping you write your EULA, whatever it is that you're doing, if you have some success and you actually get the thing going, the average length of commitment for the leaders is 5 years. And that was the majority answer. To me, that sounds right. That was also the number I secretly wrote down. Because once it gets going, if you have a venture that gets to that size and gets going, you can't just walk away. If you have contracts with people, you can't go, I got up this morning and I was thinking, Hawaii is really cool this time of year and I just don't really feel like it anymore. That is no longer an option. I can't think of one guy once who came into the office one day, told his team that, and walked out and folded the company. I don't believe in that. I can think of a guy who did it and got sued for trying to do it. But once it goes on, it does assume its life of its own. If you know that's coming and you're expecting it, and you've thought it through and said, okay, I understand, if I don't get momentum, I'll be sad because I never got this thing going. But if I do get momentum, I could be sad because now I'm riding this ride at Disneyland, and it's going this way, and it's going this way, and it's going this way. And there's probably a point where I could get off, but this is not a point where I could get off without falling to my death. So thinking about that ahead of time, am I okay with that? Am I not? Now there's an old school thought that we don't tell that to entrepreneurs because everybody will get scared off and nobody will want to do it. And you should not know what you're getting yourself into when you start. I don't buy that because I think if you're committed to do something great that you believe in, it's better to know what you will and will not accept in your life so you can make a commitment you can keep. And that's why I share those things. I'm going to make a quick part about the point of cash, just because I think a lot of times I get asked in this presentation, if you had one thing you could share with businesses, with people who are starting out maybe the first time of the business, if there were one lesson you could share, what would that lesson be? And this is it. It was actually taught to me by wonderful mentors when I started. So none of this is remotely original to me whatsoever. This is what I was taught by great people. And thank you, God, for giving me great friends to work with. And that is, one way or another, if you work with a business advisor, at some point they're going to tell you, cash is king. Whatever else you learn in this life, cash is king. I want you to get a tattoo on your forearm that says cash is king. I want you to come to the office every morning and recite out loud to yourself and everyone around you, cash is king. And I joke about it, but what I was taught very accurately is almost any mistake you make, you can recover from. I worked for a company that shipped a software product that wouldn't boot. We recalled it, we replaced it, we actually got it out fast enough it didn't kill the product, thank God. One of the worst experiences of my life, calling the warehouse, You guys should stop assembling yeah. No, I said stop assembling, no, yeah. Yeah, there's a problem. Yeah, leave parts there. One of the worst phone calls of my life. But most problems we can overcome if you run out of cash and you can't make payroll and you have a team, it's over, typically. And if you think it's not over, you can actually go to jail for some of the things that people do when they're trying to keep it from being over, and it's not worth going to jail. So that's why cash is king. Now there are some other more subtle sides to this. So I say cash and bank. That's because when we count our cash, we tend to count, well, we've got this much in the bank, and we're getting 20,000 next Tuesday. And then, of course, very often next Tuesday comes and there's no 20,000. Joe, the 20,000 didn't come. No, the 20,000 didn't come. Cash you already have in the bank is cash. Cash that is coming next Tuesday, in quotes, is not cash. And running a company thinking about only the cash you have in the bank instead of all those other kinds of cash is critical to your success, because that's the one you live and die off of, is what you have. But still there's one more variety, because there's cash you have in the bank that people can take away from you. So the only real cash ultimately you have is cash that people can't take from you. How can somebody take your money? Well, if you're venture-backed and things aren't going well, part of the fine print in your agreements is that support for the firm can be pulled and that money can be pulled back. And you could have sufficient funds for a 9-month runway sitting in your bank account, but lo and behold, you can't use them. You can have cases where people have made deposits to you. Something goes wrong, you have to refund the deposit. You had the money in cash, but now you have to refund it. You can have, if you borrow money from a bank and don't pay it back on time and you have an account in that bank, they can take the money out of your account without asking your permission. So even though you had the money in the bank, you didn't really, because they took it without asking you, because you owed it to them. And it is completely legal. So when you think about this thing of cash as king, that paranoid guarding of those little pennies that you find yourself pouring yourself over is critical. It actually becomes a vital, for the person who is leading the company, it becomes a vital skill to watch out for that cash and preserve it, because that is the oxygen we breathe. And yet, in so many business situations, I talk to people who've never had anybody take them aside and say, whatever you do, know this. So that's why when people say, what's one lesson to share? I always go back to this. Finally, the lion and the wildebeest. You know, you watch the nature programs on TV, the stately lion surveys the African savannah, looking for a member of the wildebeest tribe crossing the river who appears weak, old, or injured, waiting only to charge to feed the family. And then, you know, we all watch that documentary. Well, the fact is, in business, there are lions looking for wildebeest, and I naively never expected to see that. I had to see it in action. If sometimes you have partners who seem very friendly with you when things are going well, and then for some reason you're negotiating a deal, and you find that suddenly the terms are, shall we say, rapacious, difficult, usurious, onerous, nasty. It's because they sense weakness, and it turns out they're not really your friend, which they can take advantage. I've had people from a publicly traded company sign a contract saying they will pay us $440,000 in the fall on a certain date certain, and then attempt to get out of doing it, not do it, and make excuses because they thought we didn't have the money to sue them for it. We did. But they did it, and this is a publicly traded company. So the final point I say about cash is even when people are nice and partners, and I hate saying this because I'm an optimist, I believe in people, I was a school teacher for 6 years before the games business started. That's just kind of what started. It disappoints me that the world is this way, but just make sure you do your contracts carefully, make sure you do your deals carefully, because sometimes your friends will turn out to be lions, and if they think you're a weak wildebeest, they will try and take advantage of you. And what's funny is they will then invite you to go to mini golf 2 weeks later as if nothing happened. And it's never the same after that. I've had a lot of these stories. So number 8. What's the project in your career where teammates gave you the most praise for your work? The people around you. Just think about what project did you get the most props for? Those are always fun ones to think about. And then 9.1. What's the biggest project you ever worked on, and big in whatever way makes sense to you, that shipped successfully? So it got finished, it got out the door. It may not have sold very well, may not have been a financial success, but what's the biggest undertaking where you were part of that undertaking and the thing got out the door, the service was introduced, the product shipped, whatever it was. And then 9.2 is what's the biggest role you've had on any project that shipped successfully? What was the most important part you did of it? You could have led the team, you could have been a key creative, you could have done the technical underpinnings for it, but what was the part you played that was the biggest, most important role? Where were you the most central? And then finally, 9.3, what's the biggest project you've ever led? And you may not have yet in your career led a project, which is perfectly great. But if you have, what's the biggest project you've ever led? When I do this setting, when I've done this presentation in the game space in universities, everybody's still in student projects. The answer is going to be one of their student projects, unless they work for a family business during the summer and did something. But most often it'll be a student project. And there's nothing wrong with that too. So all these questions come back, when I bring it back to the Wizard of Oz, when I'm asking about what's the biggest project you've ever been part of, it means you got to see how somebody took something that big and got it out the door successfully. Even if they did a terrible job, you got to see how it got finished. If your dream project is that size or smaller, you're operating within the frame of reference where you've seen something like that work out before. That's an advantage. It doesn't mean you can't do something bigger. It just means it'll be easier if you're working in that footprint because you've seen it work once. When we look at what's the most important role you've played, if you're playing a similar role now, you're in your comfort zone. If it's a little wider, then you're stretching yourself a little. The more you stretch yourself, the more risk there is. Do you want to start smaller and work your way up a bit? Only you know the right answer, but it's something to think about. And if you're going to lead, what have you led before? Everybody has to have a first time they lead something. So it's not like, no, I'm sorry, I cannot lead anything. You have never led anything. Therefore, you may not. Regulation 6.2.4-C. You may not lead, you may lead that. Well, it doesn't work that way. We all got to start somewhere. But understanding what you've done before, what's relevant to you, have you seen great leaders before whom you can emulate? That's also a question. So think about all those things, because what we all want to do is we want to be like Oz the Great and Powerful. We do not want to have somebody pull the curtain back and see us operating the levers and be out of control. That's what we're trying to avoid. But there's no hard and fast. It's just matter of thinking about, okay, where am I pushing myself and challenging myself, but I'm not just trying to be an astronaut after 3 days of study on an email program. So we're coming to the end here. 10.1, this will get some juicy words. How would you feel if Oprah, every news network, who all did I put there? Fox News, MSNBC, all these people and all these trolls in the web, they all said that your product was awful or your service was awful. How would you feel?
No such thing as bad publicity.
That's one answer. And what would you do if your dream project didn't make any money? Now, through this whole thing, I have this attitude of optimism that there's always a way. Why am I bringing up this kind of negativity at this point? I'm bringing it up because thinking about it ahead of time is how you prepare for it. Because I'll tell you, every time I've been involved in over 100 game titles alone, and every time you sign that slip, which sometimes might have $1 million check attached to it for manufacturing, every time you sign the slip that says, okay, this is ready to go to manufacturing, press the button to take it live online, there's that moment of sheer terror of, what if people don't like it? Gosh, the last time I shipped a baseball game, it won awards and everybody loved it. What if they say, this one's terrible? I'll ruin my whole reputation. And I'll tell you, I think like that. I worry about it. I think about every product I ship. There's that moment of fear of, my point of raising these questions is not to stop you from doing it, but to arm yourself by thinking about, okay, what would I do? If you've never thought about it and something bad happens, it's kind of like, deer in the headlights. If you've thought about the possibility and thought about what you would do, even if it's terrible, rotten, and yucky, hey, you thought about it. It is not mysterious and unknown. It is a known that you have thought about and considered. It's portfolio management. I've had titles I thought would be pretty good. Nothing great. Nice line filler. I'd like to accept this gold disc on behalf of... And I had other titles. I would drive to work in the morning. I would hear the flourish of cornets playing in my ears. Game of the year. Game of the decade. Game of the century. Yes, wonderful. It's wonderful. Total failure. We don't know. But we keep going out and trying, but I believe in thinking about it ahead of time and recognizing the possibility. And it sucks, and his face reminds me of how it feels. One quick story, if you have a chance to read it, I put this up just so you'll be able to write down some words and Google it later. This is a great example. It's from the games business, but a case of these guys, I was actually an advisor to them early in the history of their company. And they won Game of the Year award from the most prestigious award in the industry, and they went bankrupt in the same year, and then were refunded and refounded. It's an interesting article to read about, you talk about your highs and lows, they also are a brilliant, wonderful team, great people. But I like to show it so you can look at the story. It's just, you look at those war stories and it gives you a feel for all the range of things. And it also reminds you that the Wicked Witch is out there. So, the reason I keep bringing up Wizard of Oz is I think the end of the Wizard of Oz is very important for us, and that's why I put this at the end of my talk. Because in the end, we know that the Cowardly Lion does find its courage. We know that the Tin Woodsman does get his heart. We know the Scarecrow gets his diploma to reflect his esteemed intelligence. And we also know that Judy Garland does get to go home and she figures out to get what she wants too. And by looking at these things, that instead of these kinds of charts defeating us and getting us not to try, these charts enable us to figure out how we can do things. I have invented a highly scientific term. I'm going to copyright, patent, and trademark this. You'll remember the moment that we heard this wonderful piece of the English language. It's a very important term that will be used in management theory from now on about what quality allows us to do this. And that is, never give up on this. Yes, this is my highly scientific term derived from the Latin word for never give up, which I think was Old Latin as opposed to New Latin. But the point is, if you look at all these issues that are negative in the eye and you think about them, it can empower you to do your dream project, to do your startup. And there is an important reason we do that. Because, as with the Wizard of Oz, the message underneath is very important. So what I want to ask you to think about, because if we're thinking about a true dream project, I'd like you to go back for a minute and look at what you wrote down for our bonus question number 12, of what you would do when you won the lottery. And ask yourself this question. And I don't know how much time we have for questions, but if at whatever point we run out of time for questions, I will also hang around here for anybody who wants to ask me anything else.
So, you mentioned about how much runway you need, think about your family, how much money you need. In Silicon Valley, you need a lot to just survive here. So,
I was thinking about that while I was pitching it.
So, what about the risk factor? Like, if you think too much, I mean, you can never have enough money to sustain for like 6 months. You cannot self-fund your startup, right? So, when do you think that, okay, let's just stop thinking and jump and then try to make another thing? Well,
Yeah, and it's a really good point, because I get fired up because, whatever I'm working on, I'm really committed to, as you can probably hear. There are times you have to let it go. The idea is not working. I had a really painful time. I'd done a presentation at the Game Developers Conference, and in the Q&A, a guy on one side got up and said, I've been running out of money. I've been working on this for 4 months. What can I tell my wife to explain to her why we should keep going? And I realized I didn't have an answer, because I had no way of knowing if you should keep going. And as heartbreaking as it is, I've had things I folded and walk away from because I knew it was simply time. And you go home and you swear a lot and you have a very stiff drink, and it is a very bad thing. But you have to know, and I think, Raj, you're raising a really important point, which is in the context of that commitment and the belief we can do things, and are trying to do something that is special and important. We cannot flame ourselves out and sacrifice ourselves doing that, which is why I talk about hoarding cash, to give ourselves as much chance as possible to do it. But I think you're raising a really important point, which is that commitment can never cause us to go into such blunders that we do sacrifice ourselves. It's a very important point. Other questions I can answer?
Do you think there are any examples of people like Elon Musk has started companies that he's truly believed in recently, but when he started out with Zip2, I can't imagine that was something that, it seemed like that was just an opportunity. It didn't seem like that was something he was necessarily passionate about.
When you started out with
Zip2, which was just, I think, some kind of city search finding thing.
Of the startups I've been around, I've always worked in game startups as an advisor or just through buddies who are doing things. I've seen cases where something that seemed to be a purely mechanical, okay, here's another way to leverage the internet. And there are times you'll go inside a company like that and we'll find people going through the motion trying to leverage the internet. I have been, especially at Meetup, you'll see it with some of these companies. They're doing stuff that I would have, frankly, a hard time getting excited about. They start talking about what they're doing. You go inside Intuit, it's a great example. They host some great meetups also. People start talking about their products, and they light up. You would not need a Christmas tree lights in the room at Christmas with some of these people standing next to you. They just light up. That's their passion. So I think the question isn't whether one venture or another can summon that passion. It's a matter of, are the people doing it driven by, is that joy for them? If it is, they're going to do better on average. It doesn't guarantee success. I think they'll do better on average. If everybody's going through the motions, I've seen sure thing type companies where nobody was particularly committed. It was just an opportunity and it didn't go well. In fact, Steve Blank, when we all listened to his speech at Igniters, what would be 9 months ago maybe? One of the things he said, when he founded a game company, he never thought he could go through $65 million that fast and have nothing to show for it. And that was a great example of, at that time, that I have a bunch of friends who worked for him on that company who were fabulous, talented people. But some of the other assumptions under which the company was set up doomed it to fail. So, is that responsive to your question? cynical entrepreneurs who lead companies with no passion? Yes. Such people exist, and once in a while they make money. So, the ones I've worked with, though, I mean, probably if Steve Wozniak, who was on our board at EA, you talk about technology, his public persona and his private persona are the same. Steve Case at AOL, who I had the chance to be paid in stock from instead of being paid in cash, and I didn't take that opportunity. Steve has that energy. The first time I ever met him, which was when they had 35, 40 people in the company, he had that energy. But I know that those cynical people exist. So. Other questions I can answer?
Okay, when you were a teacher, now you are a teacher. Okay, what are the most exciting steps that you feel that your growth has?
You know, I think coming from being a teacher to running a business, it's awfully similar. The way I just had 2 of my old middle school students from 40 years ago come up for the weekend and come and visit my wife and I and say hello. So I was hanging out with them and I started thinking, they were talking about how I ran my classroom. And I started to think, listening to them, I thought, oh my gosh, some of the same techniques I used in my classroom I've used in companies for 40 years. You know, you just have your own personal style of what works for you. I think that I cannot tell you that there was something I did that made that happen. I have been so lucky to be in the right place at the right time, multiple times. I once got a job off a radio ad that was only played about 12 times. And it was played on an R&B station as part of minority recruiting, and they got me instead. What is the luck of that? So I don't think I did anything particularly unique or special. I do think that if you have been a teacher, it helps tremendously when you go into business. Because a lot of what you learn in a classroom does transfer. But I don't think I did anything special other than be a teacher who got these opportunities. An example of what I used as a teacher that I use in business, I was very early in my teaching career, and one of the really experienced teachers took me aside, and I had originally read her as being this really tough, really firm kind of a Marine drill sergeant sort of teacher. And then the more I talked to her over the months as I worked in the same school with her, I realized she cares about her kids passionately. And that tough facade is just her way. And she took me aside one day. I still remember leaning on the lockers in the middle of the hallway in our middle school. And she said, you know, it's always easier to start tight and loosen up than it is to start loose and tighten up. And I taught generations when I was training teachers at Claremont Graduate University. I taught that wisdom to them that I got from her, not in school, but I got leaning on the lockers. I thought the same thing when I started managing teams about establish expectations and procedures early. It's one of the things I teach the CEOs I coach. I'll teach. Whatever your procedure is, whatever your routine is, have a routine. I'm a great believer in routines. That's something I learned as a teacher, and it has served me, in my opinion, it has served me immensely well as a manager. So that's another example, essentially. Please.
You just had graduated college now at that age. What would be your dream project today? And then also your question, your dream project maybe now.
My dream project now is the sports game startup we're doing. But if I graduate college now, you know, it's funny. I don't have a good answer to that because I never expected this, but at age 63, I'm really comfortable with the way the world is. I'm more comfortable at this age in my own skin than I've ever been. And so, having been dealt such wonderful cards by life and been so lucky, I don't have another dream that I think back about starting out with. I like the dream I started with, and I'm very content with it. And all the pluses and minuses and ups and downs that came with it. Very, very content and at peace with. So that's why I started to think about it. I thought, my brain doesn't work that way, because I don't want a replay. If I did a replay of my career, it couldn't possibly go this well a second time. So I don't want the time machine, I don't want to go back and try again. I'll take the dice roll I got on the first try. You had a question?
Yes. What advice would you give to somebody who's got a good idea, but the venture capitalists want the Googles? They want
Yes.
something that, you can take a couple million and turn it into a couple hundred million. The ideas that just benefit society are kind of getting starved for cash because everyone's looking for the home runs. What advice do you give us?
And I'll repeat the question for the live stream. The question of if the VCs want deals where they can make 100 to 1 to 1,000 to 1, and if they want a B in front of your valuation for billions at the point at which a liquidity event occurs, what do you do if you have a great idea that's not going to generate at that scale? And I think answer one is, okay, we'll cross the VCs off our list. In our venture, we are not looking to raise that much money, and we're not pointing to a $1 billion valuation on what we're doing. So we're pitching to angels, we're pitching to smaller firms that do seed funds to work around that. I think also for companies that have a social good component to what they're doing, there are investors where that is part of the standards of their portfolio, and they are looking for ROI that is not on the level of a traditional VC. They are looking to make money for their investors, but they're also looking to do social good. So if you have a product or a project that's like that, seeking those guys out, I could not give you a list off the bat, but I think you can research them and find that information. I was coaching, 2 days ago, I was coaching a team where that is their approach. And they're doing some very good in the healthcare field. And that is specifically the kind of investor that they're looking at. So I think those are the answers. One level below that, sometimes there's a way simply to take something you're trying to do, have a few people do it part-time for a while, cobble something together, and have a sample of what you're doing that people can see. That then can start to gain its own momentum if you start to get some traction, and then it's easier to go get money at that point. Okay, other questions?
So when you talk about like bigger teams, people at like level of what you actually want to do, like I'm not a creative, so like I spend a lot of time working on my craft. But at the same time, I find myself like running bigger and bigger teams, and I spend a lot of time managing people and managing projects. So I guess like my question is like, as someone who's in my position where I feel like there's a lot of time that I'm kind of like vying for two things, like, I mean, do you have any advice or what such as that is?
I don't have any easy answers. I can tell you in 1995, until 94 in Stormfront, I was the lead designer in every game we did, and I was CTO, and I was trying to juggle it all, and it was getting harder and harder. And my feelings were very similar to what you described. What my experience was, is I kind of felt, I came to the point where I said, I am in danger, I want to do both these things, and it's kind of like the kid who wants to have both the cookies and the ice cream. And I recognized the little boy who wanted to have my cookies and ice cream, and part of me said, I also have an obligation to these families and the people around me, and I've reached the point where I've got to choose. And that was a very difficult choice for me because I chose to go for the executive side and I gave up the lead designer role. I'm now back in the project I'm working on now, I'm lead designer again. So that you can tell where my heart is. For the company at that time, that was the right role. For us to do what we needed to do. And I was, as a game designer, I had set the rules of the game and I had set the game in motion. So when the evolution of the gameplay was, we're now this successful, we had our first offer that we could buy us that we turned down, which meant we now had to grow to go ahead. By the way, we turned down 3 major offers, never sold, and then got caught up in the 2008 debacle. So, and folded the company. So it's an example of why turning down the first offer isn't always the right answer. But what's interesting is, for me creatively, that was very frustrating. I believe I made the right call. Our 3 times in the Inc. 500 were in the next 5 years after I made that decision. And I admit I was jealous of the lead designers on our products, and I'm guilty as charged. On the other hand, watching the team being able to take on larger projects and do things was very fulfilling. So I was both, for me in that choice, I was both fulfilled and disappointed all at the same time. And so, and I was conflicted. I stayed conflicted the whole time. So I don't have a good answer for you about it. I think thinking through how you would feel if you actually had to be forced to choose is really important to think about. I think I made the right choice even though it took away something I love. But it's important to make the right choice and really thinking about it. And I don't think there is a right answer. I think only by really, here's the one hint I can give you. When you can't decide something and it's emotional, it isn't just logic of, you know, would I rather convert these dollars to pounds or just go straight and do it to euro for our trip? That's kind of a logic thing. But the same goes to your health. Stop thinking about it, and then first thing when you wake up in the morning, just think about the issue. Very often your heart will give you the real answer. When you first wake up in the morning, the subconscious is going to work. And it sounds corny, but I have had that give me the right answer to things. So it's also told me where bugs are in my code. I will wake up in the morning and I know exactly where to find the bug, and I cannot explain why. But I also know what the right, in certain difficult decisions. I'll wake up first thing in the morning and go, oh crap, I know what I need to do. I may not want to do it, but I know what I ought to do and I need to do and I've got to go do. That's the closest thing to a wise answer I can give, because it's right for you. So this gentleman is there, and then I'll get you.
Yeah, so going back, you had said you're more comfortable in your own skin than you've ever been now. I mean, now you are.
God, don't punish me for being cocky and saying
No,
that.
no, no, I mean, you've got a few years on me, not a whole bunch. But how do we get, controversial here, but how do we get the younger generation in Silicon Valley to respect and acknowledge and hire the capabilities of, I guess I'm in the older generation in Silicon Valley. There's this gross ageism going on. In my situation, as I'm trying to re-enter maybe being one of the early people in a larger, well-funded startup, after having succeeded in my own individual startup to bring a product to market and make it profitable. I should be a really valuable asset, and instead I keep being declared as unqualified or overqualified. This has been going on for about 2 years now.
In fact, I'm going to give you an answer which is going to sound like an evasive politician's answer.
No, tell me the truth.
Well, let's see if I can, because it's what I believe. I taught in the barrio as a teacher for 6 years. I didn't understand discrimination until
I saw there was that people who cared and were trying to do the right thing had lowered their expectations for kids for whom English was not their dominant language so much that they wanted to show love, affection, and support and usher them through without actually stopping to teach them. And that was a self-perpetuating problem of communicating not truly love and respect and support, but creating a situation where exacerbating differences in opportunity. So I looked at that and I said, I can't change society. I can't even change this whole school. And I know I can't. I was already persona non grata to some teachers for the positions I took. The one thing I did do in this situation, I think in some cases it's parallel to what you're saying. It's the closest parallel I've experienced where I had to take arms against it. The one thing I did is in my classes, shall we say, I resuscitated an old state rule that existed at one time. I never looked in the ed code to see that it no longer exists. That there were required things that kids had to do before they could graduate out of our classes. No one else was doing that, but I created requirements for the kids. And lo and behold, these kids in the barrio over about 2.3 to 2.6 years behind in English and reading skills on average in the classes, in part because of these factors. They passed those tests. I had one boy who was learning disabled and was illiterate, could not read. He had been passed all the way up into the 8th grade. We did an oral test and he passed that way and he displayed the knowledge he needed to. So my answer is, I can't change the big world. I can't even change the medium size of the small world. I like to find one piece of the darn world where I can darn well twist it my way And I'll twist that one piece and just hope a bunch of other people twist other pieces. And some of those kids are my Facebook friends now, and I feel very good about it. An evasive answer, because I don't have an answer, it's the best I can give you. As you can hear, I start to think about it, and I go back in that classroom with those kids and how proud I am.
I taught school 30 years ago and in an underprivileged area, and yeah.
So anyway, I hope that's all.
Yeah.
You had a question.
I was actually just going to comment on something that you were saying last year. I really appreciate what you shared and how you responded, because it made me realize that sometimes we get to a point where we think we have to choose forever between two things, but really it's just what you have to choose right now, but there's like this bigger, longer picture, but you can kind of get stuck in the short term. So it seems like what you're saying is, don't worry about, you're not gonna, so like if you need to turn to management right now and that's something you love and it feels good, you're not really turning off creative, you're just turning your focus to the moment. It may be a 5-minute moment, but
Yeah, and that is true. I had a terrible admission. I haven't never thought of it this way before, but what you said made me realize it. When we folded the company in 2008, we had a big client. We had a $20 million project with a client. The client got acquired. The acquiring company shot all the projects in the company they acquired. So we just lost everything overnight. Closing the company, you're in shock for a few days. And I got up one morning and I realized I was happy in a way. A corner of me was happy. And the reason I was happy is, now I can design again. Is that not the dumbest thing you ever heard? 20 years, we shut the thing down, have all the chain reactions of doing that and all the negative. And here I've got this happy point. I can design again. Yeah. So it's a very good point. It isn't for
When you're putting a team together, since you talked about being transparent with your values, how important is it to find people, in that core group that have harmonious values? I say this because it's the same values or similar values. And sort of related to that is, how important is it to find people who buy into your dream?
It's a really good question. It's an important point. By the way, I put out this episode. If people have to go, you can see my email address to ask about the book. And it's not easy to read here. It's ddaglow@gmail.com. ddaglow@gmail.com. Also, since I have an unusual name, it's gotten changed twice in 200 years, so it's very rare. If you Google me, you'll see my website, Daglow's Laws. Look under contact. You'll find my email there too. One way or another, just let me know you're here tonight, whether it's a note or a business card or an email, and we'll get you the book. I want to make sure I didn't miss that. To your point, in fact, this is something, amongst many things, this is something I'm very passionate about. Your company's culture will either enable you to achieve your goals or it will frustrate you from them. The culture starts from your values and how you do things. And then if you get to 3 people, the culture of how the 3 of you work is the next foundation. And then you get to the first 10, and the culture is really starting to settle in because you have different specialties and ways people work together. You show me any company where there's been any kind of continuity at all, and show me the culture at 100, go back and look at the culture at 10. Most of the things that frustrate people will be the same, and most of the things people love will be the same at 100 that they were at 10. Your first people you bring in, having them share the values reasonably, we're never going to be completely aligned, having them reasonably aligned and able to fight constructively about it, I think is absolutely critical. And I have driven managers on my teams nuts. It's what we've always done, and again, I inherited this from, actually I took this from EA in the early days of EA. I was number 43 at Electronic Arts, so I got the chance to kind of see from the beginning to growth. And so what we do is, I think a lot of Valley companies do, is team interviews where each person will be there for several hours, talk with a number of different people, different departments, people that the person would report to, somebody who might report to them, peers, key contacts in other departments. We then get together, share those impressions, and get back to what I said. I always make the final decision, but I'm looking for the counsel of everybody who interviewed the person. It's amazing if you figure we probably we hired hundreds of people over a period of 20 years. I vetoed people 5 times in 20 years. Because once we had the small group that shared the values, and then as we got bigger and bigger and bigger, the values were consistent, which meant that the things I was passionate about were already reflected in the team, and then the team self-selected for more people like them. So if you get 3 that are like you want them to be, they'll help you get 10, they'll help you get 20 and 50 and 100 who buy those values, but you have to start the snowball. And I had a phrase that people sometimes would kid me about if I was saying, I would always speak last in these meetings. And I had this in the book. And every once in a while say, she is going to make somebody a lot of money, but it's going to be somebody other than us because she doesn't think. And so that's my usual line about why I thought we should hire somebody. The thing is, usually by the time I got to say my famous line, which people like to kid me about, by the time I got to say that, they were already at a point where the team already agreed, and so I got to feel very good about it. Well, I agree with you anyway. Whatever you said, turns out I agree with you. But, as I say, 5 vetoes in 20 years. I think we're at the point I've already kind of run long, so I'm going to wrap up questions now, but I will hang around. Again, I want to thank all you guys, and thank you to Stanford Ignite for inviting me.